What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here, your host of the old North State Sports Show, folks. I just had a blip, an error. As I was recording this, I did my casual old welcome to the Two Grouse One Roar podcast, which in reality it is on all podcast platforms and YouTube and everywhere else. The only place I've changed the name is when I say it and on the graphics we have here. It doesn't matter anyways, folks. Let's get into a few things that we learned today, and actually as a bonus at the end of this episode, we're going to break down some of the proposed rule changes and the new measurements that are coming into the NFL this season in 2025. Bonus content. Didn't plan it, but I did the homework, so why not go ahead and bring it up? Without further ado, let's get right into the news. Panthers re-sign Raheem Blackshear. We've talked about this. We knew there was interest from both sides involved. We also know that Raheem Blackshear, I think he had two other teams, either Mike Kay or Joe Person. One of those guys put out a note that there was some interest from other teams, but smart decision. Of course, as this decision is made, we get news on updates to the kickoff rule for the 2025 season, the ball coming out to the 35-yard line instead of the 30. Again, we'll do a full breakdown on rule changes at the end of this episode. So what does this really mean? Positive news. You go back and you look at Raheem Blackshear's return stats. 791 yards, second in the NFL, 25.5 yards per return. It's a very good average. And I think he had 27 returns over 20 yards. So he gets the ball. He's a running back. He knows how to maneuver back there. With the updates to the kickoff rules, you likely should see more kickoff returns because teams are going to want to force the ball to be returned. So get it in the landing zone, give guys an opportunity to field the kick, return it. And in this case, you bring back someone who's been here. He knows the system. He knows your special teams. It's one less thing to worry about. We know you can put Xavier Legette back there when healthy. You're probably going to need another guy or two, but at least right now, that position's locked up. And if needed, he can also give you a few punt returns as well. So versatile player, makes sense for both sides. No idea what the numbers are going to look like, but I'm sure it's not a big hit to the Carolina Panthers salary cap. One of the other topics and news that came through, I guess 2 days ago, was the announcement that the Carolina Panthers and Cleveland Browns are going to have joint practice in Uptown Charlotte. That's right, folks. You're accustomed to the New York Jets because they've been here the past 2 years, once to Spartanburg, which was the last time we had training camp in Spartanburg. Hard Knocks was there. We saw Bryce Young. We saw Aaron Rodgers. We saw how dominant the Jets were. That should have been a lot of red flags, but it wasn't. Doesn't matter. And here we are again this past year. Again, the first time it happened, you had the rain delay. Past year, it sounds like the Panthers win the day. Should have been another red flag as we got into this and realized that, okay, maybe the New York Jets are not as good as we thought they were, but it did feel good to have a small win heading into the season. And people were hyped up. I mean, you remember Terrace Marshall Jr., Javian Sanders, like all these guys on this team and making plays on Aaron Rodgers. It felt like, oh my gosh, the Carolina Panthers have figured it out. So we'll get to see Cleveland Brown, a struggling team who may have a new quarterback, may have a new rookie quarterback coming down here. And so I think it's a good situation for both teams. What we've learned over the years that these joint practices seem to be better for both parties involved. You get to control the situation. And I don't know how many people understand what that really means from a football standpoint and practicing, being able to put yourself in situations. When you get in a game's a game. So wherever the cookies fall, whatever happens is going to happen. With these controlled scrimmages, you get to look at anything you want with your ones against their ones in situations that you might not get in a game or that could be rare. And we know the games themselves in the preseason have really turned into a lot of the backups fighting for roster spots. And as we talk all about this, curious to see what the Panthers decide to do with Bryce Young in the preseason this year. It feels like, yeah, he got over the hump, but you kind of wonder if getting over the hump was seeing more reps and if he would have benefited from playing a little bit earlier. That's always been one of the talking points that I've had on this show. But I am excited to see the Cleveland Browns come up. No idea if we'll be able to make it to the joint practice. That's usually one of the busier ones, although I don't think Cleveland Browns are going to be a big draw. But you never know, man. Some people just like to see other players, because you think about training camp, you're really seeing your team having the chance, if you are in the area in Charlotte or surrounding areas, to be able to travel and see them. So to be able to see another NFL team, pretty cool experience. Sure, it's a little bit different, to get to engage with the fans and all the fun stuff that goes with it. We will, of course, have you prepared when you get to training camp, being able to let you guys know about the tickets. At least right now, there's no charge. We'll find out, but you do have to secure a ticket through Ticketmaster. We went last year, so we'll keep you covered on what it's like if you are planning to go. Now, as we talk about planning and training camp and Bryce Young, we continue to talk about the receiving options for Bryce Young. And some of these things, intentionally or unintentionally, keep coming around. I posted a live stream video about this. We've discussed my thoughts on it numerous times. And it feels like every day there's something new that comes along. Now we get this reaffirmation, so to speak, of Dave Canales trying to reaffirm to us that Xavier Legette is truly a number one wide receiver. And it's hard for me to buy into this belief because you hear this one day, but then yesterday we hear him talking about the DK Metcalf trade and the conversations. Probably didn't want to let that slip, but it is what it is. Knowing that they were involved, I got to say, you don't sit down and have a conversation unless you are very seriously considering upgrading the position. You have to feel like, well, we would actually be better. But I also think of it from a business standpoint. Like, why would you not, if you have an opportunity to bring someone in the business world? You might have a really good team as it is, but if you have the potential to bring someone else in that can elevate your entire company, why would you not do the same thing? So I get it. It's important for the Panthers to be discussing these things. And I think it would be naive and stupid for them not to. Clearly. Smart decision, though, to think about this, but I think it's kind of altering my view on how this sits. And enough about that. Let's see exactly what he says. So one, Canales is highlighting his physical attributes, 6'2", 1.5, 225 pounds, 4.3 speed, playmaking ability that he's shown on film, expressing optimism about his development in his first full offseason with the team. He's coming off the surgery, which we'll get into in a second, primarily the foot. A lot of people worried about the ankle not the ankle, but the wrist, because that's been a big topic, but somehow that's disappeared and it's not a thing anymore, even though it was brought up numerous times. And now it feels like the Mandela effect, so where people are trying to pretend like this was not a thing. He was a first-round pick. We know this from 2024, ended with 49 catches, 497 yards, 4 touchdowns. A lot of those touchdowns coming earlier, a lot of them coming in the red zone. We never really got to see a breakaway play for XL. And again, coming off the foot injury that required surgery, he is rehabbing this. Confirmation that he's going through rehab on the foot at the stadium. So you do look at that as progress. It's part of the process. But Canales praised Legette's work ethic, noting he's an overworker. I don't know that I want him overworking to a certain extent, but I joke. He spends extra time training, including using the jugs machine, and primarily after a notable loss against the Eagles. I mean, we know that. He's talked about that so many times. I think it's more of a, hey, we need you to put up the numbers this year. Putting up the numbers, a successful season for Xavier Legette to me is 800 to 900. I mean, really 1,000 yards. I don't think it should be that much to ask of a number one wide receiver for your team. If that's who it is going into the draft and we don't come away, like I'm guessing we're going to pick up a receiver along the way. But if it's not at pick 8, which like the way the cards are leaning, I hear more and more people saying defense is the pick at 8 no matter what. You just wonder, like, scenarios change, players fall, player you want gets picked up, nobody wants to trade back or trade up, and you're stuck with the pick that you get. It's so much harder to draft or to get a wide receiver through free agency that's really a number one. In most situations, they're going to go back to the team that they were with. So you can try to hope and pray that you get somebody via a trade. That's the most likely scenario. But guys typically on the wide receiver market aren't going to hit free agency. There's a few guys available next year, but the class isn't great. Already started looking at it. We know the Panthers traded up, but let's be honest. I mean, they traded up like a spot to get Legette. Seeing similarities to DK Metcalf. That's who we continue to reference. And sure, it would be great, but I personally have not seen enough to make a bold claim right now to say he is close to Metcalf or is going to be like that. Canales believes he can grow and be a key target alongside Jalen Coker and Adam Thielen. We continue to build up a smoke screen, possibly, but it feels like the Panthers could be doing all this and then at pick 8 go out and get Ted McMillan or whatever wide receiver that would be available. Wild times. Now, I said we were going to get into some bonus content. We are going to do that. I've got to actually go out here on X to get you guys prepared with the thread. While I do that, we can talk a little bit about one. I've got some film out here. If you guys are interested in watching it, it's available. What I was going to say, as I got myself sidetracked, is it is a very weird time in football right now as we have Frank Reich announced as the head coach of Stanford. Interim, but then he's introduced in an introductory presser today with Andrew Luck, who's the GM, all in the ACC. This is just wild times. We're going to try to get this pulled up for you guys so we can break down replay assist as well as updates to rules. As I promised, I'm going to flip over here, go directly through X, and see if we can share this, make this a little bit easier. There we go. So you won't see me, but you'll see the content, and that's the most important thing. Before we do that, Carolina Panthers have one international market, and I can't spell, so we're going to delete this because I just clearly don't know what I'm saying. But before I deleted that, the Panthers are only in Germany. It feels like when you talk about international markets that the Panthers should at least, or all NFL teams should also be in the UK if you're talking about expanding it the way that you want. But I digress. Let's get into it. Let's get into the changes that relate to rules for this year. So Rule 1A, the 2024 free kick experiment, which is the kickoff, is now permanent. Remember, it was a test. It's designed to look like a scrimmage play, cutting space and speed for safety. We know about this in boosting returns. The tweak to this rule, receiving team alignment in the setup zone is adjusted. Touchbacks now spot the ball at the 35-yard line, as I mentioned. So that's important. It's a big change. I mean, the 35-yard line is a big difference. I was thinking about today, you really need, 15, 20, 25 yards-ish to get yourself in real field goal range, depending on the type of kicker you have. So there's changes there. Changes to overtime. Overtime gets a makeover. Regular season now mirrors the postseason. So both teams are going to get a shot at the ball. It is a 10-minute period. There was talks, I believe, of expanding it to 15. I don't really have an opinion or feeling about this. It just feels like one of those where we got to give everybody a chance type situations. I was fine with it how it was in the regular season, but I understand playoff seeding and things that come down the line is going to be more important for teams to try to get that win. Instant replay has expanded. Of course it has. Refs can now get help on objective play details and game admin issues when video evidence is not, it says clear and obvious. I guess when it is clear and obvious. So expansion there. We're going to talk about the Hawkeye system here in a minute. You have a few updates to the bylaws. Teams can now, these are just more back office, as I'd call them, team and roster management. So teams can now designate 2 players to return when cutting to the 53-man roster. Before it was 1. Now you can designate 2. Just makes it a little bit easier when you're getting to your final numbers. Bylaw number 2, the postseason teams get a boost. Max practice squad returns jumps from 8 to 10, giving them a little more flexibility. And this one's very small, but the point differential is now the third tiebreaker for awarding contracts. Bylaw number 3 that was proposed. I don't really know too much about that. I was trying to look into that a little bit more. Resolution G1A submitted by Pittsburgh for 2025. Only teams can have video and phone calls with up to 5 free agents during the 2-day negotiation period. Teams arrange travel with free agents once terms are agreed. This is a 1-year test trial. I mean, we see or have seen how hectic free agency is in that 2-day window and how fast, like once the phones open up, things move quickly. Kicking balls, K-balls as described, can now be prepped before the game, just like a regular game ball. So there you go, kickers. Teams eyeing the postseason can scout potential opponents in weeks 17 and 18 with credentials for 2 straight games. It also mandates that wild card host to provide scouting credentials to all same conference playoff teams, and free kicks to, that pretty much covers all the changes. We will now talk about the Hawkeye system that is being implemented. So if you're curious how Sony's Hawkeye virtual measurement technology is going to impact the NFL, let's break it down. Starting in 2025, Sony's Hawkeye innovations. This is all information I gathered from the NFL communications press release. So I'm just breaking it down, simplifying it for you. 2025 Hawkeye innovations will transform line-to-gain measurements with virtual technology, replacing the old chain method as the primary system. Hawkeye uses 8K cameras for optimal tracking to measure the ball's position relative to the first down line, which is super accurate and faster than traditional methods. We will see. After extensive testing last season, the NFL is rolling this out across all 30 stadiums and international venues. How fast? The whole process takes less than 30 seconds. Should shave off 40 seconds of time it takes to measure if we have a measurement with chains. Possible boosting gameplay? I don't know. The system will run from the NFL's Art McNally Game Day Central location in New York and ties into the league's replay technology. The change will stay on the field, as we know, as a backup. Troy Vincent, NFL Executive Vice President of Football Operations, says this blends top-notch officiating with cutting-edge tech to raise accuracy, consistency, and efficiency standards. Fans can win, and I guess maybe win with Hawkeyes. It will generate real-time virtual recreations of measurements for in-stadium screens and the broadcast. You'll see exactly what's happening. I'm curious how they're going to integrate this into the various networks that broadcast it into the stadiums. This isn't Sony's first rodeo in doing this, though, so that should hopefully maybe give you some good feelings about this. To kicked off with the synchronized multi-angle replay technology, the Smart Replay in 21 that had 4 camera angles. Hawkeyes, it's a big deal globally. 23 of the top 25 sports leagues use this, including soccer, tennis, cricket, rugby, a lot of the big folks in big sports. Rufus Hack, quite a name, Hawkeye CEO, says the goal is to make the sports fairer, safer, and more engaging. This NFL partnership takes that mission to the gridiron. Sony's Neil Manowitz adds that this tech brings fans closer to the action, transforming football through creativity and innovation. Beyond measurements, Sony's also hooking up the NFL with new coach-to-coach sideline headsets for 25. Sony's been an NFL tech partner for years, delivering tools like Alpha cameras, high-res audio, and now Hawkeye takes it to the next level. So there you go. No April Fools or anything like that. Let's get back on the screen so you guys can see me. And we'll close out this episode for today. So I appreciate you guys tuning in a little bit longer than normal. As always, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.